Next, from Springfield, Valerie Lies, who heads the Donors Forum of Chicago, talks about the services and economic impact that nonprofit organizations have within the Illinois economy, and why those in government and the private sector frequently fail to consider how many are employed and the services provided by the nonprofit portion of the economy. This runs about 10 minutes.
And we hope you'll join that. I too am delighted to see so many of you here today and looking forward to today's event for two reasons, and now three because of the stress reduction one. We are the State Membership Association of Foundations and Nonprofits in the state of Illinois, and our mission is to promote philanthropy in a strong and informed nonprofit community. And the Donors Forum has been for a long, long time concerned about the lack of an understanding of the value and the impact of our sector in the economy and the quality of life in the state of Illinois. For decades, leadership groups across the country have tried to conduct research, to mount public education campaigns, and conduct advocacy, particularly with elected officials at all levels of government, to demonstrate the importance of our work as the third sector, as critically important to the infrastructure of our country as the public and the business sectors. One phrase that we coined in the mid-90s, because we have been involved in this work for a long time, as part of a statewide public education campaign was, the private sector is the engine of our economy. The public sector governs. The nonprofit sector gives voice to the heart and is the pulse of our democracy. And as poetic as that sounds, that's just not enough. We also need, and we have, the data and the hard numbers to demonstrate our value. Nonprofit organizations in this state employ over 427,000 people. That's more than the top 3 Fortune 500 companies headquartered in the state, not just their state employees, but their global employees. It's more than the construction and transportation industries combined. Jobs equal wages, and that totals more than $16 billion a year. Money that is spent in communities across the state to support local businesses and industry. So cutting services, cutting programs is cutting jobs, and it's cutting spending powers that make our communities vital. Nonprofit organizations employ volunteers, over 700 million volunteer hours. Do you know what that translates in terms of dollars? According to the independent sector that has put a price on nonprofit volunteer wage, if you will, $1.4 billion. That's an incredible amount of person power directed to the quality of life in our state. And nonprofit organizations create 9% of the Illinois state product. So those are the state numbers, and we'd be happy to help you with county numbers so that you can make the case with your local elected officials, with your local community economic development authorities, whatever, about the importance and the value and the impact of our sector, not just in terms of services and programs, but in terms of the economy. As we have experienced in the last 20 years, major periods of time where this lack of understanding and support for our work has seemed particularly pronounced, we are at a point in Illinois and, of course, states across the country where our nonprofit sector is being diminished, dismantled, and perhaps permanently impacted unless we start to advocate with one voice for a different and stronger relationship with government, most especially with the state of Illinois, which historically and increasingly relies on nonprofit organizations to deliver constitutionally mandated as well as essential services to people and communities across the state. As Brent Nevers said, and Brent, where are you? Because there he is in the back. As Brent Nevers said in the Illinois Issues article called Broken Partnerships, the partnership between our sector and the state is broken, and we need to create dialogue and a roadmap for moving forward to create a new social contract. And that's why we're here today. Donors Forum needs your input and your action to create the environment in which this dialogue can start and move to meaningful results. To that end, just as we produced the Purple Book, and I hope many of you, if not all of you, know the Purple Book, which is the Illinois Nonprofit Principles and Best Practices, to assist nonprofit organizations and to demonstrate our sector's commitment to not just abiding by the rules and the regulations, the laws of our federal laws and state laws, but to aspiring to the best and highest practices in governance and management. We have produced a similar tool called the Orange Book, which you will become familiar with, to provide a framework for a dialogue about how to fix one of the most visible aspects of this broken relationship. That is the contracting relationship between the state and nonprofit organizations. This Orange Book, the Partnership Principles, is a rallying point, and we hope you will rally with us today. Later this morning, you'll learn from Laura O'Sullivan, sorry, Laura, a little bit more about this initiative, and we hope you will join, by the end of the day, our advocacy on behalf of our sector. But we also know that fixing the contracting system is not enough, and we've had enough of the broken political system in this state and the lack of leadership in all levels of our government. And we're not going to take it anymore. And so maybe that's our rallying cry. Just like Network, we're mad as, and we're not going to take it anymore. And we shouldn't. To that end, Donors Forum's Board of Directors has adopted a position to complement our advocacy around the contracting work that calls for badly needed fiscal reforms, living within your means, the pension reform, not borrowing your way out of this mess, and also, just as importantly, the need for more revenues. We can't just cut or reform our way out of this dire situation, and you'll hear more about that explicitly in a minute from Ralph. But the philanthropic and the nonprofit sector must get into this discussion. We can't just be perceived as about more money for my group, whether it's developmental disabilities or education or arts or aging. That's how we've operated for decades, in these silos. It's now time to think about how we can work across our individual subsectors for a unified nonprofit community, and making the case for the impact and the essentiality in providing the kind of quality of life for every individual in every community across this state, and holding our elected officials accountable for funding and sustaining that system. We have great numbers, we have great powers. Nonprofits make a difference. Can you imagine any community, any county, any city, any state, this country, without nonprofit organizations? So let's use that power more effectively and collectively.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.